Hello everyone and welcome back to another video. This one's just going to be an update for my previously released Solfachord Melodious video, and if you have no idea what the deck is trying to do, I would recommend going back and watching that video. It's going to be pretty similar, and I'll have the link in the description. But there's one big difference in the Master Duel release, well, 1.5, that I needed to point out. Mainly, Heavy Metal Foes Electromite is legal in Master Duel, and that means that our lines are a lot less convoluted, a lot more straightforward, a lot shorter, and just give us more bodies to work with, because we don't have to do stupid things like going into SP Little Knight with an extra deck monster so that we can banish our own couplet to get her out of our scale so that we can do things. No, you just pop it with Electromite and draw a card for your trouble and get on with your day. It's so nice. Outside of that, there were a couple other things that I wanted to mention. Namely, you might have noticed the 18-card extra deck, so I want to point this out right now. Someone in the comments of my previous videos brought up a combo that I thought was really cool. Unfortunately, I forgot about it until I was scrolling through those comments one more time, and I don't really have time to try the combo with this before I give it to you guys. I work, it's the end of the week, sorry. But I wanted to point it out at least. So the idea is that if you open Ostinato, normally what we do is we summon Baka, then we go and get Concerto, and we use Concerto to summon out Etoile as an extra endboard piece, because Etoile is a non-targeting bounce that can also float into Schuberta if removed from the field. That's pretty tight. But what you could do instead, and what might be better, and what I'm going to try out, I just didn't have time to for this video, is instead of using Concerto to go into Etoile, you're using Concerto to make a second copy of Baka. Baka's a level 7, that means we can overlay 2 level 7s into Odd Eyes Absolute Dragon. Absolute Dragon allows you to cheat out any other Odd Eyes monster from the extra deck, which can be Vortex Dragon, which is just a spell trap monster negate by shuffling a pendulum from extra deck back into the deck. We have no shortage of those, so this gives you an Omni negate online a lot earlier than we normally would with Kulia. And the thing with Kulia's Omni is that it does leave us vulnerable at points in the combo because we want to use all 3 of her Link Summon zones for our Pendulum summons, which means that we can't use her Omni Negate if we do that, so we either have to play conservatively and lose like 2 bodies, or we just have to play into like a Nibiru that way, which kind of sucks. This fixes that. The Vortex Dragon just gives you an endboard piece that just sits off to the side and is a negate whenever you need it, so you can use Kulia's zones indiscriminately, which is pretty tight. The cards I would take out to facilitate that, unfortunately, Etoile, you're never making her at that point. Schuberta, you only normally make her floating off of Etoile so she can go. And then the last piece is a little bit more flexible, but not super. I think I would take out early. She's the most conditional endboard piece, and we don't make her that often. But you could also take out either Phoenix or Unicorn. You need to keep one of these so that we can go into a bow. I like Unicorn more because it lets us make a 3-mat access code talker for the full damage going second. But, I don't know, you could take out the Unicorn and go for Phoenix, which saves you a material when you're doing certain plays. That's on you. I would take out the early. And then, because this is Master Duel, the last thing I have to talk about is non-engine. Unlike yesterday's Makonko video, we can't play through Max C, y'all. We have to stop this guy from doing his thing. So we have to play the full Max C minigame package in this deck. So that includes 2 Max Cs, 3 Fuuloses, which are a little more negotiable, but because this deck can go second quite well in the first place, Fuulos to draw us into more engine is not necessarily a bad thing. But then we have to play 3 Ash Blossoms to answer Max C, a Called By to answer Max C, 2 Drolls, because we can Droll ourselves and still end on a pretty significant board in this deck in particular. So you give them 1 to maybe 2 draws, Droll yourself, and then just keep going. Not too atrocious. We're also playing the 1 Crossout because we really don't want Max C to resolve in this deck. So we also adjust the rest of our non-engine, what space we do have after all of that is taken up, because we have cross out. So we're playing N evenly, which we can either cross out to stop them from hitting us with, or we can grab it off of Triple Tactics Thrust. Again, we don't mind going second. We're not like a trap deck that just scoops the second we go. But you can grab evenly off of Thrust. You can grab evenly off of Imperm if you're going first and the opponent hand traps you. This is just something you can set off of it, while also being a one-of that we can hit with Crossout Designator. We play the one Triple Tactics Talent. Again, you can grab it off of Thrust. You can Designator it if you need to. All that good stuff. And then one other cool thing I want to mention with Thrust in this deck in particular is that we have some really good normal spells if we're going second. So, for example, if you open Ostinato and you activate it and the opponent stops it, because this card is absolutely insane and they probably are going to do everything in their power to stop it, ash it, negate it, whatever they have. Cool, I'm going to go Thrust for Ostinato, add to hand, activate it again, because there's no once per turn clause on this card. So that's really fun. But also you can grab Solfachord Happiness, because Happiness is another completely insane starter that's also just a normal spell. So, like, we've got a lot of options for Thrust in this deck in particular. So that's why I've built the non-engine the way it is. But that is enough talking about that. Let's go see the new and updated combo using Electromite, and then get into some games. Alright, so we're back in Omega to see combos because, well, Omega actually lets me show you the one-card combos. Master Duel, please get your shit together. Anyways, we're going to start with Ostinato, use its effect to pitch 2 refrains from deck to the grave, to summon out Baka to summon the 3rd refrain, which is why you absolutely must be playing 3, to add Couplet, which allows us to bring back one of the refrains from grave. We can scale the Couplet to go get Concerto to use it, for 3 materials to go into Etoile, which allows us to summon back one of the refrains from grave off of Baka, actually the only other refrain that's in grave, because the other one will go to the extra deck. And then we can scale either the refrain or couplet on this combo. We don't have to do both. I would recommend the refrain, because if you get interrupted somewhere, couplet can get stranded and lock you into pen summoning only lights. So we scale the refrain here. And then you can go into Heavy Metal Foe's Electromite with your 2 other refrains, which allows you to add Promoa to the extra deck, then pop whatever you scaled to add the Promoa back and draw a free card. Then we can normal summon the Promoa, because we haven't normal summoned yet, to go get Happiness to allow us to add Cutia and Gracia to summon the Gracia, to add Elegance so that we can go into, with our 3 materials, Grand Solfachord Coolia, which triggers Promoa to get Happiness back, so we just have it for now. And then we can set scales, do our first pen summon, make a couple of things. We get to search the Coolia off of the Cutia, and here I make SP and Cerberus, which is going to be a Bawaku in a little bit, but we like the arrows here a lot, so that we can use Etoile's effect to banish herself to clear up space. Because we're about to do another pen summon for 3 materials. Here it doesn't really matter what materials you get. We just want the 3 materials so that we can go into Scareclaw Tryhard. We can scale the Coolia now because we're not going to do another pen summon here, which just means we have the Promoa to pitch for the Abawaku to bring back SP Little Knight, and then on end phase the Abawaku brings herself back, as well as Etoile. So this is going to be our end board on our 1-card combo here. You can see it's still quite a bit of a combo, but there's more wiggle room. We don't have to start with as many discards. In fact, for Ostinato, we don't have to start with any. You still get pretty much the same end board as before. It's just like a little bit easier and more flexible to get there. We don't have to use SP banishing our own cards. You do have to do that in the next combo, of course, but for Ostinato, we don't anymore, which is cool. Cool. Alright, and then our only other combo is our 1-card Refrain, which I consider much, much better in this build of the deck. Let's get started. So we're going to normal summon Refrain and use that to grab Couplet. Unfortunately, we have nothing to bring back, but we can scale the Couplet to add Concerto so that we can still get to Baka and get off to the races. Baka's going to summon from deck, and we have to scale both here for reasons that will become clear apparently. We have to actually use the Refrain in scale to send another Refrain to grave, otherwise we don't have one in grave to bring back with Baka, and then link the 2 into Beyond the Pendulums, And then we can go beyond 1, Baka 2, and then card draw 3, so that we can add Solfachia and Pendulum Summon both her and our Refrain from extra deck. Remember, we are light locked as long as we have Couplet on field, but that's okay, we can make it work because we have 2 bodies to go into Electromite, to put Promoa there, to pop our Couplet, to add back the Promoa, to draw a free card, to summon the Promoa out with our Solfachia, because remember, we've used our normal summon on this one. That's why we go about it this way. That's going to let us add Happiness, which gets us all the way there. We pitch a random card to go into Gracia, summon her out, add Elegance. We have Cutie in hand to put into the extra deck. We do a bit of Link summoning just to get our zones right. We have 3 Link zones from the extra deck, and what do you know? We have 3 monsters in the extra deck we can summon here. So we're going to set scales, use Happiness to get our extra Pendulum Summon to summon out 3, which is going to trigger Cutia to go find Coolia, and Promoa is going to bounce herself for the final time. Here we're going to go through the Abow line and then make early with our last 2 bodies. And then we can scale the Coolia and have Abow pitch any random card to bring back the SP Little Knight, and then she comes back on end phase anyways. And what do you know, we end with 1 card in hand so that we can pitch it off of Abow. Remember, this was a full 1-card combo. We didn't even need anything to discard, because the things we need to discard we just drew along the way, which is pretty tight. So this is going to be our end board here, which is a little bit weaker than the Ostinato for sure, but it's not too bad either way. Early is a monster negate that is kind of situational, but because her arrows are both pointing to Coolia and Abow, we should be able to use her effect at a pretty good time. SP's just going to do SP things. We still have a space open to summon the Coolia for the negate, so it's still quite a bit of disruption. Cool. Alright, game 1, we're up against Onomat Ryzeal, and our hand rips ass. So we're going to go Ostinato here, and that lets us make the Baka. This is going to be pretty much the standard line. The only weird thing is we have Concerto, so we don't need to add that off Couplet. No big deal otherwise. A little bit of a brick, just 1 card we didn't have to spend if that situation hadn't occurred. This is where you would go into the Odd Eyes line if you wanted to do that instead. Again, I didn't have time to get good games with that. Honestly, I didn't have time to get great games anyways. As you can see, the opponent doesn't have much in the way of hand traps, but that means this is just a good way to showcase what we're trying to do, and it is Onomat Ryzeal, which is a really scary deck that extends through the sky and beyond, so we're gonna have to set up a hell of a board just to stop them from popping off, because any 2 level 4 bodies that stick just does the whole thing. But we're going to do our best, so we are doing pretty standard line. We go into a Baoku, Solfachord Happiness, we can get an extra pen summon, we use that for 3 more bodies, we can use all 3 of those for Tryhard. Doesn't look too scary until you realize that we can use a Baoku, bring back SP, and then on end phase get back the Baoku and our Etoile, and all of a sudden our board looks a lot scarier. Okay, so let's see what they can do. So, Dododo pitch Onomaticage, that's the best they can do. We want to keep them off of 2 forwards if possible. I use a Toile on the Onomat here because instead of putting it in hand, it gets banished when it leaves the field, which actually puts a pretty big damper on their plans. We pop the Onomatic pickup from the Abawaku just because it doesn't actually resolve its search if it gets popped on the field before it happens. They still make it to a duo drive, but unfortunately for them, we still have 2 negates and a pop on field. So this one forces out the Coolia. They only have 1 card left in hand. They can extend like crazy, but you can't quite extend through this one, my good guy. So we're going to pick this one up. So, you know, it's a generic Link end board, and generic Link end boards aren't the scariest thing in the world nowadays, but with Coolia and our scales set, it does help out quite a bit. Cool. Game 2, we're up against Dracotail, going second, and our hand sucks ass. Let's see what we can do. So we're going to get started with a Fulos in their draw step. They have the Ash to check it, which means we're going to sit on the next Fulos to make sure we get value off of it, because we need to draw cards here. Cool, so we're going to get our 1 draw off of our Thalian at absolute minimum, and that's the best one we could have asked for. We get the Ostinato, they set Horn, They get back the Lucius, normal summon Lucius, use that to add Urgula. Presumably they have the Femena in hand then. They set one unknown and pass it to us. That's not what we wanted to draw, but okay, we'll see what we can do. We try to use Couplet to bait out an interaction before we go for Ostinato because we need to resolve this or we're just done. Thankfully it does. They don't have the Ash in hand right now. They already used one. Why would they have another one? Baka summons out Refrain. They bounce the Baka using Dracotail Horn and draw a card, and right there I should have drolled. But I really, like, we're in a tough spot here, and I'm hoping that we can use our extra draws that we get as part of our combo to get out of it as we go. We'll see what we can do. So we're going to normal summon Dreamia because we need a second body to link off to go into Beyond, but that is going to trigger a whole bunch of stuff and get us a ton of value. We can bring back a Refrain, we can search a card to hand, we can use Concerto to draw, but unfortunately they had Sting, so they banish both the Refrain and the Concerto and they draw an extra card. Wow, that's devastating, but the Beyond resolves at absolute minimum. Okay, well we can only go into Solfachia because we're light locked thanks to Couplet still being in our scale, but we can do a pen summon for just Solfachia and use that to summon out Coolia and then negate their effects because why not? Alright, that gets us to Beyond, or that gets us to Electromite, and Electromite can clear the Couplet so that we can get to something else. We're kind of making it work. We put Promoa in the extra deck. We just add back Dreamia, which honestly should have just been the Promoa for next turn, because at this point we've used our normal summon, so there's really no bridge into the Solfachord line at this point. Unfortunate, but we're going to draw a card and hope to draw out of it. If we get Happiness, we're good to go. They drew the Ash Blossom off of their back row, though. So they stop that, and all we can do is link for an access code talker, clear their board, and pass, and hope the Droll does something on their turn. Because it didn't really do anything their first turn, because we had to use the Fuuloses to draw, and we, like, didn't want to lock ourselves, but we didn't, funny enough, we didn't end up getting to use the Droll anyways on our turn. Like, it wouldn't have provided any advantage to us, because they just hit everything that would have drawn us a card anyways. Unfortunate, but they still have the Rahu in hand going into their first turn. They go into Arthalion. That's going to be too much value for us to pick up from this point with no follow-up, so we go ahead and scoop it up. Unfortunate, but it happens. And we're back with closing thoughts on our Master Duel build of our Melodious Solfachord deck. So, just to talk about that last game a little bit, honestly, you saw that even with a god-awful hand against possibly the best deck right now, we did pretty good. Like, we almost fought through that, which is pretty telling of the deck's power level. I'd say that we have the power here. The issue is just that this is a deck that really likes a sideboard. We want to customize for going second and going first, whereas something like Dracotail can just play a million hand traps either way, so it doesn't lose anything in the Master Duel format. We really want to be able to customize here, and we can't. So I would say that in Master Duel, between that and the fact that we really hate Maxi, whereas Dracotail can play through the Maxi, we probably lose as much as we gain from Electromite, if not losing more. So I don't know that I can recommend this in good conscience, because it does take a lot of URs. But if you have most of the pieces, if you know you like the component decks, if you've maybe played it in the TCG, give it a shot. It's not bad. I'm almost certain you can make it to Master on probably this exact build, but honestly a pretty close build. I would maybe swap out Symphony and Dreamia for like Piri Res maps, or maybe the third copy of Solfachia, or even just non-engine. Just because these are conditional, and conditional things in Master Duel don't work super well, unfortunately. So, I don't know. I wouldn't build it if you don't have it, or you don't know you would like it, but it's fun, and it is good enough to climb in the ranks. And maybe the Odd Eyes version's even better. Like, I honestly kind of think it might be, just because having that early Omni Negate is very powerful. So, a little bit of tweaking, and I think you'll get to a place where climbing to Master in this deck would be pretty easy, especially with practice, because this is not an easy deck to pilot by any means. It's just that I'm not sure the payoff is quite there for learning to pilot it. But, it's pretty good. So, that's going to do it for this one, guys. I hope you liked it, and I hope to see you next time. Bye-bye.